Here he's running away. Into the office. And until he gives me a go ahead, then inshallah. Yeah. Yes. It's clear? Okay. نبدأ اوكي لا ادري ما قال لي شيء نبدأ ان شاء الله اوكي أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم ابسط علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا من حكمتك وافتح لنا فتوح العارفين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم آمين يا رب العالمين. Dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh once again, and welcome to this class inshallah ta'ala. And as I can see, mashallah, like the etiquettes of today than any other day that we've been here together, among the etiquettes of seeking knowledge, when you see the scholars in Al-Haram al-Makki or Al-Haram al-Madani, when the students are literally right down their feet, we keep on wondering, why do they do that? But when Jibreel alayhi salam approached the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as you read in the hadith, فَأَسْنَدَ رُكْبَتَيْهِ إِلَى رُكْبَتَيْهِ وَوَضَعَ كَفَّيْهِ عَلَى فَخِذَيْهِ. He literally made sure that his knees and the knees of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam were together. And he placed his hands, his palms, on either his hands or his laps or the laps of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He was that close. So when we are close together while we are learning about this topic today, inshallah, first of all, you need to regard it as a lesson rather than just regarding it as another lecture which you just attend and khalas is gone. The good thing is that alhamdulillah we have online tools like social media which you can use to benefit from inshallah. لكن إذا احتسبت هذا كدرس في الفصل, like a class like a class literally and a subject in a class, you end up finding that Allah puts a lot of barakah in your understanding. Because that's exactly what we learn from the hadith of Jibreel al-Mashhur, the most famous and popular hadith that everybody uses. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all. The topic that we had in hand, however, as you can see, it says that what was the topic? Seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and beyond. Lakin, that wouldn't do justice to the topics that we will be literally skipping. Now you might be wondering, what are we talking about? The last topic we had in hand, in Kunt al-Dhakar, Shaykhana, the last topic we had in hand, wasn't it about the angels, whether they die or not? Isn't it? We spoke about, if you go look at Hounslow Muslim Center's YouTube channel, inshallah, you'll see that the last topic we spoke about is the death of the angels and al-mahshar, resurrection. And we only mentioned part of al-mahshar, and we said because it's not really a long topic, if I'm not wrong, we're just going to mention a brief of it, because after resurrection is where the entire scene starts to be created, that which everybody is looking forward to. And the first thing that we should be talking about is the common part of when after resurrection, what happens to people, what's the situation at that time. And then after speaking about that, is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now wants to give verdicts for people after handing them their books and delivering that which He promised to the people, whether إِمَّا بِيَمِينِكَ أَوْ بِيَسَارِكَ وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, from our left. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us our books on our right. Ameen. You notice that? Then, or before that, there's a very important topic that we need to cover, which is the intercession of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now when we talk about a shafa'ah, we need to look at it in a very broad perspective. and then narrow down. Because if we're just going to limit it down to that which is shafa'a in regards to that which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be granted by Allah on that day to intercede for us, that wouldn't be fair enough. We wouldn't do justice to the subject itself, inshallah. Lakin before we get there, this is built with when after we are resurrected, وَإِذَا الْقُبُورُ بُعْثِرَتْ عَلِمَتْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ وَأَخَّرَتْ in Surah Al-Infitar. And then in Surah Al-Zalzala, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا. We are literally burdened. We are burdens to the earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make us pop out of this earth. You know when you use the word ba'thara, يبعث من في القبور, and then it's used somewhere, the word bu'thira is used somewhere else. وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها. I forgot exactly where it is. Lakin, you notice that محل الشاهد is إذا بعثر ما في القبور. الله يفتح عليك. بارك الله فيكم. In the same surah, I didn't carry on. جزاكم الله خيرا. إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور. You notice that, what does it mean in specific? It means that, you know, when you see the earth has settled, literally, what happens when you're buried? When you're buried, after a while, the dust settles, isn't it? And your earth, literally, where you are buried in your grave, it becomes rock solid. But then on that day, everything will start tilting. And when it tilts around, that's when you notice we get resurrected. Sometimes you see these adverts on YouTube or television, especially our children today, they watch a lot of entertainments. You see that there's zombies coming out of graves coming out from the earth, and then the earth starts tilting around and the sand starts mixing up and that. That's exactly what will be taking place, and maybe beyond, even more frightening. And then when that happens, the next thing is that what's going to be taking place is these following verses are going to happen. يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ. And it's that day, يَوْمَ تَذْهَلُ كُلُّ مُرْضِعَةٍ عَمَّا أَرْضَعَتْ وَتَضَعُ كُلُّ ذَاتِ حَمْلٍ حَمْلَهَا وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى. There was once a man who looked like a beggar, who was regarded as a abd. And when we say abd in the literal translation of it, it means a servant, a slave. لكن كلنا عباد الله. All of us are slaves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether we like it or not. وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ, as he mentions in the Quran. May Allah make us of those الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا, until when he says وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. This is the criteria of what? Success. May Allah make us of them. Ameen. But you notice that this man, he was regarded as a beggar, so-called beggar. He passed by a rich man's house. I forgot literally his name. But reading the books, inshallah ta'ala, from the seer, you notice that, or hikam, you notice that these people did exist. A man was literally blowing a party, throwing a very rich party in his house. When he passed by, he found that the millionaire or the billionaire was having the best time of his life, and he doesn't even know what party he is. When he knocked on the door, literally rang the doorbell. Rich people don't really knock on their homes, isn't it? You just ring the doorbell and he can see on the other side who's the one on the door, because they don't want nuisance and people that will come and annoy them and disturb them, right? Everybody becomes a disturbance to them and in their atmosphere. His servant came to the door, and when she approached the door and opened, she asked, Malik, what is it that you're looking for? The man said, the person that lives here, أهو حر أم عبد? Is he a free man or is he a slave? The next thing the woman says, هو حر, he's a free man, right? He then told him, go and tell him, if he's a free man, then carry on doing what he's doing. But if he is a slave, literally, he knows that he's a slave, then let him think twice of what's going on around him. Allahu Akbar. When the man received this message, the next thing that he did, every single good that he had, materialistic, he made sure that he sold them all off. He realized that this man who came to the door, he didn't know who he was. He was a wise man trying to bring an epiphany in his mind, telling him, look, if you're a slave of Allah, then you realize this lahu and lahu means nothing. And you'll be questioned of your wealth. What's going to happen? Because some people, this is how they are. Which is why we connect together Surah Al-Anbiya and Surah Al-Hajj at their very beginning, each one of them. كل هذه الصور لها علاقة مع بعض. Every single one of these surahs, let me tell you something. Reading in Tafsir al-Mawdu'i, more than 20 scholars sat down to literally bring this book to life. Nearly 10, 20 volumes, if I'm not wrong. And nearly all scholars, I'll tell you, if they don't have it in their libraries, then they have it in their iPads. Somewhere online or somewhere in their homes. Because it's the most prominent tafsir which people undermine a lot. But it's not to the public. Because it's a bit advanced. Actually quite advanced. The Arabic is very simple, mashallah. لكن فهم هذا الكتاب and understanding that book is another issue. It breaks down to you how the surahs are connected to one another, how the beginning is connected to the end of the surah. And it goes on like this. One, if for example it has 5 chapters, it's going to go 6 chapters. 1 and 6 goes together, 2 and 5 goes together, 3 and 4 goes together, and then you have 4 and 5 coming together. Something like that. If I'm not wrong, I forgot the numbers, right? Last, second last, third last, until you come to the middle. Like that. That's how the Quran is. And then you break it down, you find that every chapter connects to the end until the surah, when you finish min al-jinnati wan-nas, it connects again to Fatiha. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The end connects with the beginning and the middle connects with the rest of the Quran. Allahu Akbar. That's why you notice in Surah Al-Anbiya, when this man received this, he understood immediately. اقترب للناس حسابهم, that people, their reckoning has literally come to them very close. لكن المشكلة هنا وهم في غفلة معرضون. They're literally denying the call of Allah while they don't have any idea. They are in total ghafla. They're still asleep. Allah. ما يأتيهم من ذكر من ربهم محدث إلا استمعوه وهم يلعبون. They listen to the reminders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لكن what happens next? They're literally just in لهو واللعب. They're playing. وذروا الذين اتخذوا دينهم لعبا ولهوا وغرتهم الحياة الدنيا وذكر به أن تبسل نفس بما كسبت ليس لها من دون الله ولي ولا شفيع. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have to say the beginning of this verse, these words, and then bring in shafa'ah, which brings us to the topic of shafa'ah. Let alone those be in the state where they are, which they are in, which they may mess around, play around, enjoy themselves. They literally deepen themselves in amusement, and they take a mockery of their religion. Basically, mockery doesn't mean that we do this, that we say, well, Allah told us this. Is quite funny actually. No. It's when you know salah time enters, you don't go to pray on time. You have to do something for the sake of Allah, you ignore it because it's not important to you. And the worst of all is the mockery of hypocrisy. You mess around with the words of Allah and then you make a joke out of that. There was a period that brothers came and told me that some people literally invented jokes out of the verses of Allah. A'udhu billah. Why would one decide to do that? Forgetting the fact that when they will be resurrected on that day, bringing us to Surah Al-Hajj, on that day, يوم تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت وتضع كل ذات حمل حملها. Every single person on that day, a woman that's literally pregnant, she will literally get a miscarriage immediately. And every single person that will come to Allah, they will look like as if they're drunk, but they're not. And when they face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that time, the first thing that happens is that يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُم. In Surah Al-Anbiya, the surah before Surah Al-Hajj, Allah knows that which is happening right in front of them, that which will happen as well, and that which took place in their past, and everything that is surrounding them. And on that day, وَلَا يَشْفَعُونَ إِلَّا لِمَنِ ارْتَضَى. They will not receive intercession, nor will the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam intercede for anyone except for whom Allah is satisfied by, who deserves intercession. وَهُمْ مِنْ خَشْيَتِهِ مُشْفِقُونَ. Subhanallah. That's what's going to be happening. When that happens, and all of us are in front of Allah, We don't know our mothers. We don't know our children. We don't know anything of what we did in this world, nor the people that we were in love with. Our brothers, our sisters, our siblings, it doesn't matter. But when that day reaches, everybody will be in a position trying to look for means to have themselves saved from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the verdict that Allah will come up with. Now, when you look at a-shafa'ah in itself, among the many steps mankind will take, is that scholars, they translated lughatan, أن الشفاعة هي التوسط للغير في جلب المنفعة أو دفع المضرة. What does that mean? الشفاعة is having a middle ground, being in the middle. وكذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا. And you notice that in Surah Al-Fajr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ. Literally, that which has a middle ground, which you can divide. Why do we call it shafa' and not witr? Majority of the times we confuse the idea of witr and shafa'. We say I'm praying witr, then you end up praying 3 rak'at. If you are Hanafiya, and you're following literally, you are very strong Hanafi, then you are doing witr, because you're going to do 3 rak'at in one go. Right? But the rest of the other madahib is 2 rak'ah and then 1 rak'ah. Witr is odd, shafa' is even. So when we talk about shafa'ah, it's having an even ground. Okay? Now this applies to so many things. It applies to those, majority of the times, people that will go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in specific though, whom they don't know whether they are going to paradise or not. And maybe what they have literally delivered to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the good things that they've done, or out of Allah's mercy, they are hanging in the middle. وَآخَرُونَ اعْتَرَفُوا بِذُنُوبِهِمْ خَلَطُوا عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَآخَرَ سَيِّئًا. There are some people that will have bad and good in the middle, and they don't know where they're heading. Now what's going to happen to so many of these people? Even if we've done good enough, but we have not yet passed the sirat to go to what? Paradise. May Allah make us of those people. And even those who are going to an-nar, wal-'iyadhu billah, you notice that they still don't know whether they're going or not. So when they come now to explain in regards to shafa'ah, what does it mean and how does it work? يقولون أن الشفاعة على قسمين. Shafa'ah divides to 2. الشفاعة التي تكون في الآخرة, that which happens and will take place only on the day of judgment itself. والشفاعة التي تكون في أمور الدنيا, that takes place on this earth. That's why I told you, when you look at the issue and the concept of shafa'ah, you have to have a broad understanding of it. You don't just narrow it down to qiyamah. You have to look at it in a worldly sense. Now, if we look at it in terms of akhirah, we're going to explore akhirah first, and then inshallah ta'ala in our next sitting, we're going to finish off that which remains from this dunya. Because there are so many misconceptions in regards to shafa'ah on this dunya, which we are heedless of, and sometimes some of us even commit shirk because we go beyond the limits of shafa'ah on this earth. How do you seek shafa'ah? How does it work? To whom does it apply? How can you do it? And how is it permissible? To what extent? You need to know the ahkam of shafa'ah. Now what does shafa'ah stand for on this earth in specific? For example, let me give you just a basic example. You have a boss, you work at a company, and maybe because you know there's a promotion coming up, but then that promotion you won't be able to receive it unless you go through the boss's secretary or PA or maybe someone who's quite close to the boss. And you know you have a chance, you're a very hard-working person, right? And the boss knows that you deserve to get there, alhamdulillah, yet he hasn't decided whether you're going to get that position or not. But you know through this man or this peer worker, you'll be able to get that position. So you ask that person to intercede for you as a bridge in the middle. You build that bridge and you ask that person, look, go talk to the boss, if possible, that he grants me that position because I'm more deserving. And when you look at the work, everybody there, you have the CV, which is right, to prove that you can get that position because you've done the work. And then that person says, okay, he takes the responsibility. If that person knows that they cannot make any impact to change your situation, then they have to definitely tell you, khalas, I can't help you. Which now brings us to akhirah, where every single messenger, imma rasulun am nabiyyun. You know the difference between a rasul and nabi? You can raise your hand up. Even if you don't know, don't be embarrassed. We can talk about it. Barakallahu fikum. What's the difference between a Rasul and a Nabi? What's a Rasul? And a Nabi is a prophet. Is that very clear? I think we need more clarification. This is how it works. All right.
So a prophet didn't necessarily come back and change of legislation or message.
MashaAllah. Allah yaftah alik. Ewa.
The messenger came with ahkam and a new message or a refreshed message.
Barakallahu fikum. Inshallah, I hope that was very clear. You heard that. I'll repeat that so that perhaps those who are watching online, they can benefit as well. Our brother, dear brother, mashallah, kana yaqul, he was saying that a Rasul is different from a Nabi because Rasul, they are given scriptures that, for example, the Quran, the Tawrat, the Injil, all of them Zabur, وَآتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ Zabura. We know that, isn't it? And then whom do we have? Suhuf Ibrahim wa Musa. And we have the Torah during the time of Musa, and we have the Injil during the time of Isa, and the Quran during even our times today. That's the book that is the most authentic at the moment ever existing on earth and until the end of time. Lakin, what happened is that these, beyond that now, besides them having scriptures and also ahkam legislations that they convey to the ummah, on top of that, they are given the job to do what? To explain and publicly announce this religion and deliver the message. Alright? Allahumma hal ballaghta, Allahumma fashhad. That's what the Messenger ﷺ was saying. Basically, oh Allah, have I delivered? And oh Allah, you become a witness. Not only Allah, but those who were there as well. They become a witness that the Messenger has delivered his message. Lakin Anbiya, not every Nabi is given the responsibility to convey. But all of them have their own miracles, mu'jizat, to separate them from normal people. So that people can know that these are from Allah. They are the ambassadors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. And they have contact with malaika at the same time. Isn't it? But in Anbiya, they don't have scriptures that they come with specifically all the time. La. But we do call Rusul Anbiya, but we don't call Anbiya Rasul. You can call a Rasul a Nabi, but you can't call a Nabi a Rasul. You can't do that. It doesn't work both ways. A Rasul is like, for example, a person who has a certain extent. You can call someone who has a certain subject, or maybe they are good at this career, that this person is good at this, and then someone who has two, you can say that this person is good at this and this, but he's not good. Maybe this other person is only good at one and not two. Or this person deserves two, but this one doesn't deserve two, this deserves only one. Because that's what they were given, or that's which they have. I hope that's very clear. So every Rasul, every Nabi on that day, Musa alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, Ibrahim, all of them, regardless of how much Ibrahim has done, whom we expect the father of this millah, of this nation. You notice that they will all say, I really can't do much. I'm sorry. I'm not the passive person to do it. But when the Messenger ﷺ would be approached, what would he say? Ana laha. I am the one whom shafa'ah belongs to. I am the one who the shafa'ah belongs to. And when he says that, you literally know that by Allah's will, it's going to take place. Now, let's break this down. When it comes to shafa'ah in regards to akhirah as well, ala anwa', we're going to divide it to types. There are types. And an-naw'ul awwal, we call it ash-shafa'atul khassa, the specific type of intercession. وهي التي تكون للرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم خاصة لا يشاركه فيها غيره من الخلق. It's the type of shafa'ah intercession that takes place on that, specifically for the messenger alone. This tells us something, right? Is there a shafa'ah that includes other creations or maybe other beings other than the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or other people other than the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam? We're going to find out about that soon, inshallah. Lakin, the first thing that we need to understand is that there is a shafa'ah which specifically is only to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, given to him alone.
Nobody else. He is the only one deserving, which means that he can intercede. He's the only person who deserves to intercede to this level. And we call this one ash-shafa'atul uzma, the greatest of all types of intercession. Because that is the ultimate intercession. There's no other intercession greater than that. So the ulama, they explain that وَهِيَ مِنَ الْمَقَامِ الْمَحْمُودِ الَّذِي وَعَدَهُ اللَّهُ إِيَّاهِ, in the verse which he mentions that, and then we're going to mention the verse. لكن he says وحقيقة هذه الشفاعة هي أن يشفع لجميع الخلق حين يؤخر الله الحساب فيطول بهم الانتظار في أرض المحشر يوم القيامة. This is the type of shafa'ah that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even beforehand, and he will be given as a gift on that day. When the time comes that now mankind have reached to a position now, his nation, basically people that have believed in Allah. Does this shafa'ah concern people that don't believe in Allah? Does it? Yes or no? Come on, brothers. Yes or no? No, it doesn't. How does a person who doesn't believe in Allah deserve a shafa'ah? It doesn't apply to them. It only applies to people that literally have faith in Allah. They've said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, at least, at the very least. Now, specifically to what type of people though? Because people are going to be in categories. As we said, there are those who might be going to the hellfire. There are those who already know that they're going to paradise. There are those who are literally going to be stranded in the middle. They don't know where they are heading. But these type of people are the people that literally they are stranded now in the middle. They don't know what's going on. فَيَطُولُ بِهِمُ الْقِيَامِ فِي هَذَا الْيَوْمِ. When the qiyam, the standing in front of Allah has become too long for them, that in their hearts there's a lot of qalaq and a lot of daja', that they're feeling the deepness of it. They're feeling finally get very difficult. They don't understand. Where are we heading? What's happening to us? What's going to happen on that day? At that time, the Messenger ﷺ is specifically given the ability to do what? To seek intercession for them. Because on that day, these people will say, مَنْ يَشْفَعْ لَنَا إِلَىٰ رَبِّنَا حَتَّى يَفْصِلَ بَيْنَ الْعِبَادِ. Who is going to intercede for us so that we can be separated from those who are here? Because as we said, everybody on that day is what? Nafsi, nafsi. It's just me, me. It's about myself, myself. Actually, that's happening even today before we even die. Everybody cares about themselves. We know that. That's happening. If you find your brother, your own brother, literally, same blood, he's dying, and he's back home, this person cannot survive. Allah has given you over here water from taps. Allah has given you bread. Allah has given you milk. Allah has given you even beyond that fruits. You have rice. You eat chicken every day. You eat meat when you want. You eat what you want. You wear what you want. Whether you're living in a council home or not, it doesn't matter. But you have everything. Your own brother from the same kin back home is suffering. They can't even pay their rent. And maybe they're living in just a one-bed home. But you can't even take a little cut of maybe, how much do they need? 100 pounds? 150 pounds? And you're saving 500 and beyond because you're saying you have a bigger goal. Ya man bana lid dunya. Ya hasratah on that day. You're trying to build for this world. Woe upon us, trying to build this much and forgetting others. Remember, when you're doing that goodness for that person, it's not just you're thinking about them, you're thinking about yourself. That day when you pass away and you go to Allah, everybody will be in what? In nadam. Everybody will be in regret mode. What do we say? Everything is in modes nowadays, right? But on that day, you're going to be in full regret mode, with full throttle, literally. Because the good that you've done, you desire that I wish that I did more. And if you've done evil, you would wish that you return back and change that evil to become good. Wallahi al-azim. So don't think about the goodness you do for another brother or sister or someone that you don't know when you give out in charity, or the hard work that you do. You carry things, you physically do things, you use your hands to do the good things, whether by doing, no matter what it is, what type of labor it might be, as long as there's a sadaqah down there, it doesn't mean you're doing it for them only. You're doing it for yourself. We have to understand how charity works. It works both ways. Ask yourself when you go to Allah, what would you need to help you and intercede for you on that day? If your deeds are not going to intercede for you, you definitely need the messenger to do that for you. But before he goes to the messenger, what about our deeds? How much have we done? You don't want to be stranded in the middle. Until you say that حتى يفصل بين العباد, until Allah separates between servants in front of him, who goes to where and who's going to go to where after the shafa'ah. Nobody wants that. At least Allah gives us a judgment that we are going to paradise immediately. Ameen. Now after that, that's shafa'ah number one. When that shafa'ah takes place, the scholars explain according to the hadith, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَهَجَّدْ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ. Remember that at night the messenger was told that as a command. هَذَا الْأَمْرُ خَاصَةً لَهُ. There are commands that literally look like عام, okay, basically very general. If you read in Usul al-Fiqh, you'll understand this. But it doesn't mean general, it's not generalized, it's specific. It means all of us. We have to follow it. But then there are commands which literally look like khas at the same time, very specific, but it's generalized because it applies to everyone. But then at the same time, there are those commands which are khas, specific, and they are going to remain specific. Just like those which are am, general, and they remain general. But you wouldn't understand until your Arabic is that good. And you've sat down with the scholars, you've learned the fundamentals of your deen. So when you read in tafsir, you'll understand in certain, for example, you read in a tafsir al-Mawdu'i, you read in a tafsir al-Zamakhshari, and you also read in Fakhruddin al-Razi, and even you go even further than that, but Fakhruddin is a bit philosophical. Anyhow, you read in Al-Qurtubi al-Tabari, they give you some of these ahkam, and you understand whether this verse applies to whom and whom it does not apply to. But this verse specifically applies to the messenger. وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَهَجَّدْ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ. Remember, that is a nafila, not just a nafila, it's a command you have to fulfill. Every night you do tahajjud. Lakin, what's your reward? عَسَىٰ أَن يَبْعَثَكَ رَبُّكَ. Allah perhaps might resurrect you on that day, مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا, in the most noble, grateful position which nobody deserves except for you, Ya Rasulullah. He is the best of creation, Allahu Akbar. And he deserves that position. If all messengers are not going to get it, and all anbiya except for him, doesn't that make him special than anyone? لكن اعلم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء. Now, as we said earlier, we explained it already. Now these people, they will go to every single messenger. فَيَأْتِ النَّاسُ إِلَى الْأَنْبِيَاءِ فَيَقُولُ كُلُّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمْ لَسْتُ لَهَا. Every one of them will say, what? I am not the person for it. And then when they reach to the messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, what did the messenger say? أَنَا لَهَا, أَنَا لَهَا, according to the hadith. Then it carries on like that, and they explain that وَالْأَحَادِيثُ الدَّالَّةُ على هذه الشفاعة كثيرة في الصحيحين وغيرهما. All of the ahadith which literally explain about this type of shafa'ah, you find them in the Sahihain, Bukhari and Muslim. Brothers, don't fear touching the ahadith. You can read these books. You don't have to know all the riwayat and the sanad and the isnad of every single hadith, basic silsilatul rijal, the chain of narration, but at least read just the text of the hadith and understand it, inshallah. It makes life easier. Al-Imam Shafi'i says, a person that literally memorizes hadith and they know the authenticity of the hadith, the daraja, the level of the hadith, and especially if you memorize Bukhari and Muslim and that, at that time there was no Bukhari or Muslim. But at our time, yes, Allah has blessed us with them. If you understand Al-Ummahat Sitta, but mostly Bukhari and Muslim. For the laymen and normal people, like myself, Bukhari and Muslim is enough. I'm not knowledgeable as you think, so Bukhari and Muslim, I'll tell you, let's do it together. If you understand that, قَوِيَتْ حُجَّتُهُ, that person's evidence and understanding of religion becomes more firm and stronger. It doesn't end with Quran. لأن الأحاديث تفسر القرآن أليس كذلك؟ Ahadith, what do? They explain the Quran and beyond that. And you notice that in some of the ahadith, Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, he says, إن الناس يصيرون يوم القيامة جثا أو جثا كل أمة تتبع نبيها يقولون يا فلان اشفع حتى تنتهي الشفاعة إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فذلك يوم يبعثه الله المقام المحمود. What does it mean? Everybody on that day, they will be overwhelmed to a level where now they become jutha. What does jutha mean? Or jatha. Someone falling on his knees or her knees. You don't fall on your knees unless a rock hits your leg and maybe you fall on one knee. But when you fall onto your knees, it means you're overwhelmed. That's what it is, whether emotionally positive or negative. Now when you become overwhelmed on that day, it's because you don't know where you are going. On that day you end up realizing that everybody, the Messenger ﷺ says, that every ummah, every nation will follow their Nabi. And when they follow their Prophet, every single Prophet wouldn't be able to intercede for them until when the Messenger ﷺ becomes the last one to be approached, Allah will tell him that this is what we resurrected you for, al-maqam al-mahmud. That which we promised you is exactly what you deserve at the moment. That's what you deserve. It's simple as that. And there's so many explanations in the middle in terms of ash-shafa'atu li ahli al-jannah, for the people of Jannah who will go to Jannah. It's super easy about that. And then there is another shafa'ah and another shafa'ah from of people who are going to Jannah. Not only they are going to Jannah, but they are going to Jannah without any accountability. Min ghayri hisab. Because there are two categories. There are those people that literally, as I said, when they face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a few questions, khalas, you pass the test, you may go. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam will still intercede for them, because they will follow him. They will be with the Messenger, and the Messenger will escort them to Jannah. Bear this in mind. The doors of paradise, as the hadith goes, according to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would not be open until the Messenger approaches them first. When he reaches to the doors, he will knock on the door, and then the angel literally would ask, who is it? And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say, me, it's me. And when he says that, immediately what happened next? The angel would say, bika umirt la aftahu li ahadin qablak. Allah, Allah, I am commanded to open these doors for you, and I'm not allowed to open them for anyone before you. Allahu Akbar. Which means that paradise, nobody would enter it until the Messenger enters first. So imagine you're walking literally behind the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you're among those whom the Messenger interceded for you, so that you are going to Jannah without no accountability. Literally, Allah is not holding you accountable for anything. Min ghayri hisab, you're going to paradise. How beautiful is that? You'll be among those as-sabiqun, ulaika al-muqarrabun. You'll be of those. But then there are those who will be going to Jannah. They will have a little bit of hurdles. They will have some questions. It's like their book is a little bit vague, but then once it's clarified, immediately they'll be told, you may go. And then there are those, as we said, then after that come the people that which they don't know where they are going. But we're not talking about the people of hellfire. We're going to come to those inshallah ta'ala. The second type of shafa'ah, which is specific to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well, is shafa'atu Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam li'ammihi man Abu Talib. His uncle Abu Talib, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam will intercede for him. Look at how important it is for our generations that are coming, inshallah ta'ala, to realize and understand about their religion. You know what's happening today is that when you look at these interviews, I know this is a very sensitive topic, but I have to mention. When slavery was at its peak, literally people were in continents, in Africa and even in the Arab world, people were taken as slaves, literally. Some were even scholars, and they were enslaved, put down in servitude, not out of their own will. They didn't know what was happening. It's like what's happening right now back home. Many people, they are told that there are jobs in the Middle East or in other parts of the world, and because life is so difficult for them, what do? They do take those jobs. Now, what happens is that, this is harsh, and I know it might even backfire, but I'll say the truth. When they get the jobs, these brothers and sisters, when they get their jobs, you notice that where they go at the embassy, they take even their passports. For today's world, it's like literally telling someone, I'm stripping you of your identity. Agreed? Your passport is your identity. If your passport is taken away from you, what are you left with? Whereas nationalism is literally at the rise at the moment. One speaks, I'm a Muslim, but I'm a British Muslim. And you're proud of that. Wallahi al-azim, it's fascinating. I'm Muslim, I'm a British Muslim. And you're literally proud of it. One thing we need to realize, the moment you say, I'm a Pakistani Muslim, Bangladeshi Muslim, African Muslim, Arab Muslim, once you've done that, you've associated your Islam with your heritage, your background, your culture. So Islam does not become your priority. Your priority becomes where you come from. And that's exactly what was instilled in us 100 years ago, which made us fail today. Not realizing how much of an impact it has in our lives. If you read in history books, Ad-Dawlat al-Uthmaniyya specifically, it's in volumes. Go look online, buy the book. Don't download the PDF. The PDFs don't have any barakah. I'll be very honest with you. Throughout my years of learning, I've learned for approximately nearly 2 decades, your brothers and sisters. Since I wouldn't even count from the age of 5, but I would count from the age of 11. Today I would say my age, I'm 31. Wallahi al-azim, I'm telling you, the only thing that I've found barakah in is books. Let no one tell you otherwise. You can write in a book, you can walk around with a book, but if your iPad dies, the charger is gone, what happens? Can you switch it on? Can you put it on a solar, maybe say the sun is up and then it's going to light up? No, it's not. What if you're stranded somewhere in a public transport and there's no way you can go? You have your iPad, maybe your iPad has not even Wi-Fi, even if you connect to Wi-Fi on it, but the next thing that happens is that it starts distracting you. You have your phone, it distracts you. Somebody might even call you and take you off the mood. But when you have a book, put your phone on silent, you look into the book, Allah immediately puts barakah in it. You know that. The Quran was written in papers. Knowledge was gathered together in papers. Why not celebrate that and enjoy it more? Which is exactly what scholars did. When you read in the books, you notice that they explain at the time when the Muslims were successful is when their tawheed was at its peak, not technology. Not because they had so many programmers today, they're so good at AI and coding and replicating things. No. But when their tawheed was at the peak, at the time when the Dawla al-Uthmaniyya was being established, and even at the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, why did he remove Khalid ibn al-Walid from his position? Ask yourself that. It was because of the purpose of Tawheed. To safeguard the Muslims' identity, Tawheed, so that they don't feel that Khalid ibn al-Walid is the one that brings them success. But what's happening today? We identify ourselves otherwise. The moment you do mazj, an ikhtilat, and a combination, a mixture of two things, you have a different color. How do you get blue, by the way? How do you get gray? If you mix white and black, right? That's how you get gray. So you're left in the middle, in the gray. But if something is white, is white. If something is black, is black. So if we identify as Muslims, we have to embrace our total Islam. Identify yourself as a Muslim completely. I'll mention to you something. This is a tangent, just like how I'm in a tangent at the moment. Returning back to Abu Talib, inshallah. I was talking to a brother quite a while ago. He said something really beautiful. These are not my words. As I said, I'm not the most cleverest person, nor am I the most knowledgeable person. He said that nowadays what's happening is that you notice our children, they are marrying different ethnicities, literally. White marrying black, Asian marrying African. That's what's happening. Sometimes we look at that as a problem, but did you know that actually it's a blessing? You know why? Because when a person from a different background, from a different culture, marries another person from a different culture, what neutralizes them to? You have these ideas, I have these ideas, these are the things that we do at home, and these are the things that we do at home. And you know that perhaps most of them, they are haram, or maybe things that are literally, they are fine, but it's best to avoid. What brings them in the middle ground? Who knows the answer? Allah yaftah alayk, barakallahu fikum akhi. Islam. Islam brings them in the middle. Now imagine majority of our generations to come, they do this. What happens next? The idea becomes in their mind, it's all about what? Islam, Islam, Islam. Otherwise there will be no household. Let's be honest. So take that as a blessing, not as a curse. Allahu Akbar. Trust me on that. Now coming back to Abu Talib, he raised this, so we're returning back to him. Abu Talib was a man that served Islam as much as he could. But the one thing that he did not decide to take is the identity of Islam. Can I get a tissue, please? Is the identity of Islam. Because he didn't take this, regardless of everything that he did for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he suffered the blows. Not only one blow, nearly every single blow. when the Messenger ﷺ was exiled, boycotted, he had no place to even rely upon. In his own home, barakallahu fikum, in his own home, when he migrated, imagine you're born and bred in a country like this, and you literally live here, and then all of a sudden your identity is stripped off you just because you believe in something which others don't believe in, and you don't have that right. How does it feel? It hurts. It hurts more than the death of your own children. Wallahi al-azim. Because you're left in the middle of nowhere. Where should you go? And that's exactly what the Messenger went through. And Abu Talib took every single blow. But the one thing that he didn't do is not believe in Islam. Now listen to his shafa'ah that the Messenger ﷺ will be given on that day. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, he says that أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال ذكر عنده عمه أبو طالب. He mentioned, basically Abu Sa'id himself, he mentioned أما ذكر عنده, it was mentioned in front of him, his uncle Abu Talib. And then he said لعله تنفعه شفاعتي يوم القيامة. Perhaps my shafa'ah, my intercession, might help him on that day. Which means that he will be forgiven and he will go to paradise. That's what it meant. That's exactly what the Messenger would want, right? Because his uncle stood for him. You got to understand that. He's a human being. The Messenger ﷺ is a human being, but Allah gave him miracles upon miracles and things that he didn't give us. That's what we need to understand. إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. The only difference is that yuha ilayhi. I get inspired and revelation. That's the only difference. And then he explains that when that shafa'ah comes in place, Allah has already made it clear for him. Very vivid. It really require an explanation. That Allah wouldn't give him full exemption and say that you are now exempt from hellfire. No. But what's going to happen to him is that فَيُجْعَلُ فِي ضَحْضَاحٍ مِّن نَارٍ. He's going to be put into some very shallow type of fire, basically just a coal of fire on that day. And we know that the actual coal, or maybe just the spark of the hellfire, was put into seven seas. Maybe that hadith is a bit da'if if I'm not wrong. And then it was brought to this earth. Is exactly what we are using today to do what? To cook and also to light up our homes and the rest. Okay? But however, we know that the fire that we have here today, the heat is reduced extremely low compared to that which is in the hellfire. That's what we need to understand. That's the most important thing. If that is the case, imagine just the coals of the hellfire itself being placed under his what? Under his feet, and literally by his heels. That's where they're going to be placed. يَبْلُغُ كَعْبَيْهِ. Literally. Okay, when they reach to his heels, يُغْلِي مِنْهُ دِمَاغُهُ or دِمَاغَهُ. What are they going to do? They're going to make his brains boil. That's the shafa'ah of the Messenger given. That bad. And that's literally the very least of punishment. Literally, the very least of punishment. The most lowest of the lowest of punishments that he would receive and nobody else will receive. The rest of them will be even إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ. Or other ones, or what? أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. Of the kuffar, those who reject him. Okay? And even beyond that. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ شَقُوا فَفِي النَّارِ لَهُمْ فِيهَا زَفِيرٌ وَشَهِيقٌ. That's what's going to happen to them. خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا مَا دَامَتِ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضِ إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ رَبُّ. Now that's another type of shafa'ah. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to just take a little bit more, then stop, and then come back and finish off inshallah ta'ala in our next lesson. Lakin, the one that we need to mention mostly, الشفاعة لأناس قد دخلوا النار في أن يخرجوا منها. Okay? والأدلة على هذا القسم كثيرة جدا. It's the type of shafa'ah that we are talking about for the people that have already gone to the hellfire. They're already there. Which means that once Allah has already decided you're going to hellfire, wal-'iyadhu billah, may Allah not make us of those people. When that happens, there is no shafa'ah from the Messenger. That's done. Because Allah has to fulfill His promise. His wa'd. As long as wa'dullahi la yukhlifu Allahu wa'dah. Allah's promise is there. Once He places it, it's not going to change. If He says that you're going to the hellfire, you're going there. But then once you're there, there's a leeway or there's a way that you can be saved from that punishment for you not to live there forever and burn for the rest of your life. So this is the second type of shafa'ah, which is not just the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's the type of shafa'ah now which includes the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and as well Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, the angels themselves, and also the salihin, the righteous of people. If we start going down that route, it's going to be a very long discussion, but we don't really want to open that door at the moment. So inshallah ta'ala, you just had an idea that this type of shafa'ah involves a certain group of people, not everyone. I want you to remember what type of people we said. First of all, is whom? The main of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then it's whom? The malaika. Then it's whom? The anbiya. Then it's whom? The salihin. Remember this. I'll give you something. وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ. Now from this verse, take this. Allah and the Rusul and the Anbiya, with whom? The Salihin. And then you can add on top of that Malaika. Just a little leeway I'm giving you so that you can remember how many types of people that we've been talking about. These categories of people are regarded as to be a part of al-shafa'atul ammah, the general shafa'ah, not the shafa'atul khassa. The specific shafa'ah, we said that it belongs to whom? Which is known as al-shafa'atul uzma, belongs to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the second one, which is specific to him, is the one that is for his uncle, Abu Talib, isn't it? But the one which is general is all of these other people that we've mentioned. The other beings can be angels, and then the anbiya, and then the salihin. The type of people that have gone to the hellfire, and also maybe there's other more categories that we're going to explore in our next session inshallah ta'ala, and then talk about the shafa'ah on this earth, how it works, so that we don't really take the wrong route inshallah ta'ala. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. This has been nearly an hour, so just to be fair, I would open the floor for at least one or two questions, but as far as I can see the faces, everybody wants to run away. Yes. Wa alaikum salam. No, it's fine. Wa alaikum salam. No, in terms of the slavery, I forgot exactly what book it is. It was an English book actually. But in terms of Ad-Dawlat al-Uthmaniyya, you have to literally just type in Ad-Dawlat al-Uthmaniyya. Kitabu Ad-Dawlat al-Uthmaniyya is going to come up immediately, inshallah. Inshallah, barakallahu feekum. And in regards to understanding about these topics, which we just mentioned separately, which are just tangents, a part of from this session that we've had, you need to go through the books of the Sahabas. There are books literally written about Umar ibn al-Khattab himself. There are books written just about Abu Bakr ibn al-Khattab, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq himself. And there are books which are written about Uthman. And the best of the ones that I enjoy the most is Uthman, because I can relate to Uthman today more than relating to Umar. I know Umar, when we literally listen about Umar, we have this sense of pride. We know Umar is the man that literally liberated nearly all of us. Not nearly, literally all of us. You talk about Umar, you're talking about lands. You're not talking about Medina. You're talking about Baghdad, Iraq. You're talking about Syria. You're talking about Palestine. You're talking about all of these lands under Umar's dominion at his time, under his khilafah, under his presidenthood at his time. But when you talk about Uthman, you talk about Uthman in regards to what? The fitan that took place. Look at what's happening today. It's even worse than what happened at the time of Uthman. How did Uthman radiallahu anhu pass away? We need to understand these stories, read them from the right sources, so that we can understand ourselves. I'll tell you what, dear brothers and sisters, why do you think our children are disconnected from themselves? When you're disconnected from your faith, from your identity, you're literally disconnected from yourself. Wallahi al-azim. I always say this, and I say this especially to my family, because our children need to realize. My son asked me a simple question which he didn't know. But then when he realized, he felt, oh, so we're all the same. The only difference is that you're my father. He thought, because we always try to teach our children, majority of the times, by the way, we teach our children that Allah is the God that should be feared. And if you do something wrong, He's going to severely punish you. He's going to boil up some hot water with oil, and then He's going to burn you alive and make your bones melt. That's what we keep on telling our children. But in fact, if we make our children love Allah, they would want to know more about Allah. They would want to know about who this Allah is. Why do they fall in love with football players? Why do they fall in love with other type of actors or actresses or maybe industries? They watch Paw Patrol. Some of them even copy the dogs. Trust me. I've seen that many times. They watch CKN on YouTube. I'm mentioning these because I see them from my own siblings, from my own siblings' children, and I see them sometimes from my children. Although I've banned YouTube completely from my children, except for schoolwork. If they're watching number bots, number blocks, or maybe things which relate to improving their mental state, actually. Lakin, most importantly, why do you think they want to imitate these type of people? It's because they find them to be the most cool people on earth. But when you tell them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constantly in love with them, and when you try to be a person that literally does the good deeds, your children start questioning, why are you doing this? You tell them it's for Allah. And then when they do something good, you tell them that Allah is proud of them, they end up wanting to know more. And they start digging in. There was a little child, literally 7 years old, who blew my mind away. You know what he said? When am I going to die so that I can't go to paradise? Because I heard paradise is so cool, actually. Because his belief is that paradise is way better than technology. That's what he believes. But that's amazing to see. You're wondering, they don't know what death means, but they know that the next best thing that they could ever have is Jannah. So they want to go there already. Although it's unrealistic to tell them, die now, you're going to go to paradise. That's not what you tell them. But then you notice that my son told me this. I was telling him, look, we're late, we need to go home, otherwise I'll miss my salah. It was Salatul Asr, literally I would tell you it was on Thursday. It was no other day, yesterday. And he told me, why are you rushing to go to pray? I told him, because if I don't pray, Allah will be angry against me. And that's going to be a big problem. And it was nearly around 3:40, something like that. Because we know Asr from there, it's nearly half an hour left, isn't it? He told me, what? Allah is going to be angry upon you? You, dad. I told him, yes, me. He said, how? But you're my father. You know what I told him? I told him, one thing you got to realize, son, is that to Allah, you and I, there's no difference. He said, oh. So what does that mean? I told him, look, because you need to realize that Allah is the one that created me, Allah is the one that created you, and all of us are servants of Allah. So whatever we do it for Allah. Not because I am older, you're young. But when you learn about Allah, you learn about Allah at this age so that when you grow up, you can be a better servant to Allah. So no matter who I am, and no matter who you are, no matter who mama is, or your sister is, it doesn't matter. All of us are the same to the eyes of Allah. And one thing, did you know, son, is the fact that my responsibilities to Allah are far more greater than yours. You're lucky at the moment. Because even if you don't pray, do you see me forcing you to pray? He said, no. I pray when I want. I told him, because you're lucky. But if I don't pray right now, it doesn't prove my loyalty to Allah. He literally asked for the word loyalty. What does it mean? I told him, because if I want to show that I'm a very good friend to Allah, I'm close to Allah, and I am serving Allah, the first thing that I need to do is pray. So if I don't pray, my loyalty is not served yet. So that's when he realized. And the first thing that happens is that the first thing when he wakes up today morning, asks me, Baba, did you pray Fajr? I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be nagged because of praying, then I better pray before it's too late. May Allah help us, inshallah. Lakin, i'lam, in order to keep the identity of our children and understand who they are, Wallahi al-azim, brothers, you need to make sure that you embed this in their systems. Abdullah ibn Umar did not become Abdullah ibn Umar unless he understood about Allah. Abdullah ibn Abbas did not become Habrul Ummah just because the messenger prayed for him, but there were prerequisites. He grew up in that environment. It was just about Allah and Allah alone. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he became the greatest of each one of them when he came to the Quran. There was a time that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was sent by Umar ibn al-Khattab to other lands to serve the Ummah. And when a group, an entire qafila came back, an entire caravan came back, Umar ibn al-Khattab questioned them, who are you people? Why are you here? And only one person would respond back. And then Umar ibn al-Khattab, I forgot literally the question, would ask questions just related to the Quran specifically. verse upon verse. And he wouldn't mention just verses. What does this verse say? He would mention a history behind it, like looking at Asbabun Nuzul, why were the verses revealed, and then after understanding that, immediately that person would respond back. Do you know what's the next thing Umar says? Afikum Abdullah ibn Mas'ud? Is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud between you? That's when Abdullah, he unveiled himself and he said what? Radiallahu anhu, yes, it's me. I'm the one who is here. How did Abdullah ibn Mas'ud become like that? It's because he lived with the people that understood what Tawheed meant, what an identity meant. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all, and it's the end of this session, inshallah. We wouldn't be able to take any questions. And if you have any question, please hold that man over there with his glasses and his phone, maslaha. You can give him the questions, he will write them somewhere, and then next time when we meet again, inshallah, we'll finish up the concept of shafa'ah and then answer your questions, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum.